You're watching 10's Morning News. Thousands of Australians are facing unemployment, or at least are having their hours cut back as the global financial crisis continues to pack a punch. And with a few tips for surviving redundancy, we're joined now by financial planner Wilson Luna. Good morning to you, Wilson. Thanks for joining us. The rate was at 5.8%. That's unemployment. It's quite steady, but it means a lot of people are out of work.
Yeah, it does. And not only that, there's somewhat sway on those figures in terms of there's 48,000 who are on part-time unemployment, which sort of sways the figures, and it almost seems like a majority of individuals seem to be, or a large part of individuals seem to be probably dropping down their hours slightly in order to maintain their employment status. So those figures, although they've only increased marginally, from a part-time and full-time perspective, there seems to be a nice increase.
What does redundancy mean for workers and their families?
In a lot of cases, particularly if they're going through it for the first time, it's not only a financial, I suppose, dilemma, it can also represent an emotional one as well. And for a lot of people, it represents their identity to a certain extent, and it's a matter of, I suppose, getting over that initial stigma, because it's sign of the times, unfortunately.
And that's a very good point, isn't it? For the first time in perhaps decades, people are finding themselves out of work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that can be very damaging, I guess, to morale and the family unit.
Yeah, well, it's all about getting back in there, dealing with the situation, and I suppose start planning for how to get over it.
With that, how can you make the best of what is a crisis situation?
Okay, well, from a financial standpoint, we call it the financial battle plan, and that's one of the ways that's the way we describe it. It's a three-step process. Step number one is grab currently what you're doing and have a look at your entitlements, because you should have redundancy entitlements. They should be in different components. So make sure you get advice on that side of it and see which ones have got beneficial tax benefits and which ones are tax-free, because there's a lot of different types of, I suppose, entitlements within the redundancy side. Number two, have a look at your budgeting. If you do budgeting regularly, redo it, because your circumstances have changed somewhat. And unfortunately, during these times, there might be because of the redundancy, you might actually end up making a lot less money than what you used to before. So you need to start adjusting your budget, both from a revenue perspective and your expense perspective. Surely
the initial reaction would be, well, I want to get back into full-time work. Is taking a part-time job in the meantime a good idea?
I think it's an excellent idea. You mentioned earlier, it's also from a morale perspective. You get back in the workforce, you get back on the horse, and before you know it, you're getting used to it again. You're out there in the workforce. You're getting to know, particularly the way that our climate's changing. It's a good way to get back in there, and we call it getting back on that horse, ready to until the right opportunity comes your way.
It's hard to say, but I suppose in some cases redundancy might be a blessing in disguise. Is it?
Yeah, well, that's a great point, because what we're finding with a lot of our clients, at least, is some of them have been stuck on that job for so long that they've limited some of their possibilities, and suddenly they've gone through the process. They've obviously had to adapt to it from a financial and from an emotional standpoint, but then certain doors open that could never have opened had they not been redundant. So yeah, it could be an opportunity in disguise, absolutely.
Okay. One final message to those who might have lost their jobs: not to lose faith, not to lose hope.
That's a good call, yeah. Don't lose faith, don't lose hope. Make sure to focus on the two key things. Number one, from a financial front, start getting your affairs in order, because it's not the end of the world, and it could end up being a great opportunity in the long run.
Wilson Luna, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.